Hello, fellow forgers. I'm here to look at Photobooth 2.0 and some of the neat features that it adds, many of which come from graphics programs, effectively. Specifically, we're going to look at layers, which are in the overlays section, and can seem complex, but they're not actually once you understand a little bit of color math and color terminology. We're currently in the backdrop section because that's where we start this. You can see I have three colors set here, a 128 green, a 128 cyan, and a 128 255 purple. Now you might ask why. Well, I'll explain in a moment, but looking at these, three terms you should know. Hue is your rainbow bar. It is what color it is. In this case, 0.75, okay? Luminance is your lightness, your brightness, is the black to white scale, the up and down on the bar. Saturation is the amount of color, is the back and forth, basically. Okay? And these numbers here, they go from 0 to 255. They're going to play a large role in this. So is the luminance, as you'll see. Let's look now at overlays. And we're going to choose a border, nice solid border to start with. There's a fun one. Okay, open that up. Uh, Normal layer mode is pretty self-explanatory. I change the color, doesn't do much. If it was a gradient, you'd see more variation, but it's not. I can make it a background effect only. Okay, simple stuff. Now, clear gives me transparency. If this was a gradient, I'd have a gradient transparency. Again, pretty simple stuff. Mask is a fun one. Mask is the opposite of clear, basically. And I can use it to do some pretty neat things. Look at that. You know, I gotta set these back to 0 real quick. There we go. If I make it a background effect, look at that. By doing multiple overlays, you can do some pretty neat stuff with the mask, as you can imagine. Now we're going to change, well, actually I don't need to, lighten and darken. Lighten and darken are kind of interesting. Lighten seems to be doubling our color output. If I looked at the top, that's a solid green. I have a solid cyan down below, solid purple. It's doubling things, basically. And I can, of course, adjust that with the strength. Now, darken, oddly, seems to be set at 1 to solid black. I'd have to go to a 0.5 to get it to where to darken as much as the lighten was, in reverse, basically. Not sure why they have it set that way, but might be reasons. Where it gets interesting is add and subtract and so on. And for that, I'm going to choose a different overlay, one that it acts more like a spotlight for us. And I'm going to make it bigger. Now, it doesn't seem to do much right now because I have it set to white. But what happens if I change it to this? Now it is a 128 red. And you can see that it adds up kind of interestingly. Now remember, the top one was a 128 green. So now, because those numbers are adding together, it's a 128 red, 128 green, 0 blue. It's a dark yellow, it's olive. The middle has gone from cyan to solid gray because all three values are now 128, while the bottom has become a solid magenta. Why? Well, because I have 128 plus 128 for 255 in the red zone, and I already had a 255 in the blue zone. So they basically just add those numbers together in the RGB categories. Subtract is the opposite. Subtract is subtracting whatever I have here from whatever's below it. Now, it doesn't seem to be doing a lot to the background. That's because I didn't have any 128, any red values in the top two, but it's doing a lot to the bottom section of the background. It's making it solid blue because I'm taking away all the red. And that's where you can do some really neat things. For instance, if I took away all the green by making this 255, boom, look at that. The green makes up a lot of the glow in my characters. So taking away gives them a completely different look, doesn't it? Now, multiply and divide don't work like you'd think they do. You would think that multiply would make things brighter, right? And yet it's darker. Well, there's a reason for that. Multiply and divide work on luminance. Luminance goes on a 0 to 1 scale. At midluminance, it's 0.5 gray. 0.5 times 0.5 equals 0.25. It's a smaller number, closer to 0, black, which is why multiply makes everything darker. Conversely, as you might have guessed, divide is going to divide 0.5 by 0.5 and make everything brighter. 0.5 divided by 0.5 is 1. And of course, since I have the red in there, it is skewing things a bit from, the bright white it might be. If I take that off, there you go. You see the big difference. Nearly solid black. I think it is solid black, actually. Yeah, yeah. So you see how those work now. It's pretty neat stuff. And that is color math for you. I hope you've enjoyed and understand a little bit more now and might experiment with layers.